Chapter 5, The Gateway to Repressed Emotions. I will share my personal story of how I discovered a method that incorporates physical, emotional, and mental factors. In a way, I am torn about whether to include it or not, because I consider this book to be a work of science. Did Einstein tell the story of how he formulated his model of relativity, or did he just present the model? Of course, he just presented it, because mathematics, as a science, requires no historical or aesthetic support. However, people frequently tell me that they can relate to my story and find it quite useful, so I've chosen to include it. I first noticed that I had pain in my body at age 18 when I was in my first year of university studying aeronautical engineering. My neck, shoulders, and forearms would ache whenever I used a computer or wrote with a pen. My low back would ache whenever I sat in a chair. My knees began to ache at the gym. Soon, standing in one place for too long or walking hurt, and eventually it just hurt all the time. I tried every single mainstream physical treatment method that you've ever heard of. I stretched, I did yoga, I got regular massages, I learned good posture, and people even said I had great posture. I saw chiropractors for spinal adjustments and radiologists for injections, but there were no pleasing results, and believe me, I was extremely dedicated. Seeing as other people studied just as much as me, lifted weights just as much as me, and generally had equal or worse posture and form to me, I thought the pain was because I was somehow using my muscles incorrectly. I didn't just have physical pain, I also had a lot of anger, anxiety, guilt, sadness, and regret. I sought to feel better in classic self-development books like How to Win Friends and Influence People and 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, Awaken the Giant Within, Think and Grow Rich. I learned public speaking at Toastmasters. I learned to be confident and sociable. I felt fear and did it anyway. I sought success. I received first-class honors in my degree. I worked first in engineering and later in corporate finance. I ran an online business and earned over USD 10K a month. I traveled to 40 countries, but I still had physical pain everywhere in my body, worse all the time. Truly intolerable, insufferable pain. And I was still constantly anxious, angry, sad, guilty, and regretful. About what? I had no idea at the time. Just a thick fog of undifferentiated feelings from unknown sources. Lifestyle is great, but it does not even begin to compare to a good-feeling body, healthy emotions, and a calm mind. I suppose the only thing that kept me together was hope. Hope that I would one day reach a day when I would begin to figure it all out, fix everything, and feel good. For you, I hope that day is the day you began reading this book. For me, it came suddenly on a day after 12 years of body-wide pain. Better late than never, right? It was on a day in August 2017, living in Medellin, Colombia, a day like any other in the city of eternal spring, when I stumbled on my first hint. I found a YouTube channel by a Finnish mobility expert, Eero Westerberg. He moved so well, and the way he explained it was like no one had ever explained movement before. All about feeling the muscles and paying attention to sensations in your muscles during exercises rather than the external visual appearance or form of the exercise. I hired Eero to coach me, and I learned all about the mind-muscle connection, not just the facts, but how to use it, how to awaken my dormant muscle sense, which is indeed a real thing that scientists call proprioception, meaning self-perception, the neurological ability to perceive your own body. I was getting a literally world-class education in how to move my body. I learned to control the level of tension in my muscles as I did exercise. I learned to move with smooth control and stability. I got in touch with muscles I didn't even know existed and learned to move my joints in ways I didn't know they moved. And I began to notice that my body was indeed feeling a bit better. But nothing could have prepared me for what happened next. I was trying all sorts of different movements now that I was being educated on how to move my body, and one day I looked up a term called developmental movement because I was suspicious that what I needed to do was really, really easy movement so slow and easy that I'd never taken the time to do, as I'd been living in a rush all my life. So up came a video by a woman named Alicia Patterson, teaching one exercise from a group of developmental movements from decades ago called Bartenieff Fundamentals. Alicia warned that doing these movements could trigger repressed emotions to release. At the time, I was like, well, that's not a real thing, but I'll try it anyway. I was blown away. Sure enough, as I did the exercise, moving back and forth, rocking slowly and consciously as I learned from error, paying close attention to the sensations coming from my muscles, suddenly something happened. A feeling of fear, a clear feeling of tension in my lower back, confusion, and suddenly a flashback to some distressed emotional moment in childhood. And just like that, the tension in my lower back released. It simply turned off. A painful emotion experienced and resolved with a simultaneous release of chronic muscular tension. I was eager to repeat the experience. Unfortunately, none of the exercises on Alicia's channel had a similar effect. I looked up videos of the other Bartenia fundamentals exercises on other YouTube channels. I tried them, but I didn't get a similar result. Had I just gotten lucky? I wasn't sure, but even that single experience, I was immediately certain in that moment of three things. 1, that chronic muscular tension was a mind-body phenomenon. 2, that slow movement with deep focus on muscles could help release trapped negative emotions. 3, that trapped negative emotions were somehow linked with chronic muscular tension. And so I began to experiment on my own, trial and error. Whenever I had a moment of free time, I was trying different movements, trying to trigger the same experience. And I probably would not be talking to you today had I not had tremendous success. In a mere 10 days, I was able to replicate the experience approximately 100 times, and I noticed a clear pattern. Each experience started with exceedingly small back and forth movements of a joint, signifying turning muscles on and off. These movements would help me to deeply focus on a specific tension in a muscle or muscle group if the tension covered a wide area. Suddenly, there would be an onset of fear or confusion, followed by a flashback and an experience of a trapped negative emotion, followed ultimately by the release of a chronic muscular tension. I was over the moon. A couple of the best things after just those 10 days were that I no longer needed to use a backrest whenever I sat down to work, and I no longer needed to wear special wrist braces on both hands to prevent pain while typing. And just in general, so many muscles all over my body felt so much better. If that were all I achieved, that would have been enough for me. Though I'd had a taste of what was possible and I wanted more. I sensed that it was probably possible to completely cure all chronic muscular tension from my body. Summary of this chapter. I had physical pain all over my body. I spent 12 years trying purely physical approaches. The first breakthrough came from learning to perceive my muscles. The second breakthrough was finding a gateway to repressed emotions via slow, small, focused movements. Exercise 5. Lift your head up off the floor. Lay either on your stomach or your back. Take as long as you like to get comfortable and present. Check for any muscular tension that you can turn off and do so. Raise your head so that its weight is no longer resting on the floor, but contact is still being made. If you're on your stomach, then just the skin of your forehead should be touching. If you're on your back, then just the back of your head should touch through your hair. Hold this position for an extended period of time and observe the configuration of muscular tension you are using. Undoubtedly, you are overly tense because you are not only lifting your head up, you are also fighting all the chronic muscular tension that is working against you. What is this chronic muscular tension? Where is it? Is it in your throat, the back of your neck, your shoulders, your chest, your ribs, your lower back, your hips, your legs? Pay attention to all the tension in your body and try to feel it. Ask yourself what you feel and why you feel it.